I have a question, and it's a question just for you. Is there some random fact or piece of information you have and hold that seems to come up every now and then in conversations? Maybe this knowledge you nestle in your mind happens to be something that, when mentioned, you realize that the people around you know nothing about it. After a while, it becomes something you really enjoy sharing because you're like, wow, facts and learning, what fun. So you start imparting this brain gold you have onto others when the chance arises. I'm not talking like,
oh yeah, this band I know, they're pretty obscure, pretty life-changing. Vampire Weekend, ever been?
kind of shit. I'm talking like, oh hey, did you know that ketchup used to be sold as medicine? A wild right, totally true bro, Google it. Well, that's what this video is going to be. This video is going to impart a random event that for some reason has lived rent-free in my mind for years. Every year that passes, I end up telling people about it, and without fail, they never seem to know what I'm talking about. So I'm making a video. And there definitely already are several videos on this. But f*** those videos. For I must do my service to this story, and right the wrongs of the lies spread about it, and confirm for many what is truth and what is complete fucking baloney. So today, we dive into the Great Emu War of Australia. Hey folks, it's SheriffBananas again, and, well listen, we've got a lot to set straight with this story. Up until I started doing research for this video, even I was under the impression that what happened here was completely different. So let's get to peeling, because this is a load. Did the war even actually happen? Let's start this off by confirming one thing. Yes, Australia waged war against its native and cherished bird, the emu. This is real. This actually did happen. There was a war against emus in Australia in the year 1932. Fact. Now the thing about this is the term war paints a very vivid picture in our minds, right? Bloodshed, carnage, hundreds, even thousands of people fighting in some form of combat. Maybe your idea of war is medieval, and you imagine people fighting all Game of Thrones style, gutting each other for sport and honor. Maybe you think about modern warfare with drones dropping bombs and shit. Maybe the first thing that comes to mind is some Revolutionary War garbage where some asshole's out there playing the flute for morale while his bros are getting gunned down in musket-loading slow-mo chaos. Whatever version of war is in your mind, the most common element is people battling, and usually lots of them. This is where I assume some of the largest misconceptions of the Great Emu War arise from. When you think of war, you think of masses of people against each other, right? The Great Emu War did indeed consist of about 20,000 plus emus. However, their enemy force seems to be much smaller than I anticipated, seeming to truly only consist of around 3 dudes. Yeah, like 3 guys. In the hours and hours of investigation I did for this video, I could only really find 3 dudes who were deployed by the Australian government, and then everyone else was just farmers giving aid. So I don't actually have a fully accurate number of how many men were involved in this war, and I don't think many people do. So we'll leave it at that. There's like 3 fucking guys and then a bunch of farmers. I was under the impression there were a lot more human beings involved in this war. In my mind, it was tens of thousands of men and emus deep in bloody chaos. Turns out, I was fooled by some bad information many moons ago. But that's okay, because I'm not a complete piece of shit, and I'm willing to learn and correct this information I carry, and learn lots and lots more, and then make it digestible-ish for you. So let's set the record straight. The Emu War was 20,000 plus emus against roughly 3 dudes, maybe, and lots of farmers. Oh, and they had machine guns. The dudes, I mean, not the emus, but we will get to that later. In conclusion, the war did happen, maybe just not the way one would imagine a war. So the real question is, how did 3 men and some farmers end up losing a war against emus? Why did the war happen? To get to the bottom of why this war happened, we have to look at the Great Depression. During the time of the Great Depression, not just the United States, but the world as a whole was suffering quite a bit. Australia is no different in that regard. After World War I, a large amount of Australian soldiers and personnel moved back home to Australia as veterans, where programs were started to help get these veterans gainfully employed. Australia was being a cheap whore at the time, as far as pensions for veterans went, because, well, Great Depression, big poor, much sad, no monies. These programs essentially gave veterans farmland across Australia to grow crop and raise animals like sheep and other livestock. Some of the most inhospitable, frankly shit areas were now being populated. One of the issues with this, however, is that the territory was mostly emu territory. Only a few years after these farmers started to get their shit together, emus were posing a huge fucking issue. Crops and fences were being fucking slam danced by giant birds left and right. This cost the farmers plenty of crops, as well as the growing costs and damages when it came to their property. What can you do about it though, right? Can't shoot the bird, it's a protected species of Australia. The new lives they were promised were being horribly disrupted by birds. This made farmers bring up the issue to the government. So the farmers brought it up like, hey, we got these shit birds, one killed my dog. And one of the first things the government tried to do to quell the situation was to say, protected species? Not for long. And they removed their protected species classification, just like that. The humans saw this as a great first step. The emus, however, had a new category to get used to. And the category the emus were then put into? Vermin. This didn't help much, unfortunately. Bounties were placed on emus, and being ex-soldiers, farmers fought off emus themselves, but to no true avail. Not only were the emus a growing disruption, but the Great Depression was rearing its ugly head, and there was exceeding pressure on the farmers to produce more wheat. The government just kept promising help in all of these matters and not delivering. And it's like, dude, how the fuck do you expect these farmers to produce more crops when they've got these huge 5'7" birds that are 69 nice pounds, and they're letting rabbits in and they're throwing goddamn parties on the farm? Soon after, farmers expressed they could not keep going on like this. The number of emus that had migrated to the farmers' lands by this time was in the realm of 20,000. The farmers could not fight them off as quickly as they were coming. They began demanding farm relocation of the government and were threatening to refuse crop yield. Well, the issue with the farmers' threats is that the government is still poor. They needed a cheap and reasonable solution. After insane amounts of pressure from the farmers and other activists, the government finally caved. It was time to call in the big guns. Calling in the Australian military. The year is now 1932. The people in the government decide that this is a matter for the Australian military. The soldiers, turned farmers, turned emu haters, and killers knew what the fuck was up and were totally down to bring in the machine guns. The operation was to be led by Major Gwynedd Purvis Wyn Aubrey Meredith of the 7th Heavy Battery of the Royal Australian Artillery. God, that's really a mouthful. So this mofo is going to bring in some bros. He's got Sergeant S. McMurray and Gunner J. O'Halloran. With an itch to kill some fucking emus, 3 bros, 2 Lewis guns, and 10,000 rounds of ammunition, they were certain the vermin issue would soon be but a bad dream. The beginning of October looked promising. Well, they were totally fucking wrong on that one. It started to rain, and in the rain the emus scattered about, making it virtually impossible to plan a successful attack while preserving their ammo. And it kept raining, for like a while apparently. By the time it stopped raining, it was already November 2nd. November 2nd was the day of the next attack. They planned an ambush which involved some herding and corralling. The emus, however, had different plans and began splitting into small, harder to target groups. This operation was also considered a failure, as about only a dozen emus were killed in the attack. I tried cross-referencing this information to find out more about the attack, but it is quite possible shame has kept more from being documented about it. Not even a couple days later, another opportunity arose. 1,000 emus were sighted, which meant better chances for the gunners. The idea was to wait until the emus were in range so that they could pew 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 and knock out a few hundred or more emus. This also did not occur because I guess there might be a god and that god loves emus. After opening fire and killing about a dozen more emus, the gun jammed and failed. And according to some sources, the gun jamming was due to rainy weather conditions. This led to another failed operation. Rain and emus 2, humans 0. This obviously called for a change in plan. Things escalate. Things were out of control, and it seemed no matter what plan they put into place, it would get foiled, either by the emus, the weather, or their equipment. Meredith decided they would traverse south to an area where the emus were more, let's say, chill. This also proved to be unfruitful, and boots on the ground reported, each pack seems to have its own leader now. A big black plumed bird which stands fully 6 feet high and keeps watch while his mates carry out their work of destruction and warns them of our approach. You and I know for sure, though, that the emus were totally like, hey, Jared, you tall gangly fuck, you don't do fuck all around here. Get your ass to work. You're on lookout duty. That dude probably wasn't even the leader. Poor Jared. Anyway, not only are the emus already elusive, destructive, and being protected by God himself, but now they are developing their own strategies altogether, which is a goddamn shame for these farmers. It will get better, right? Right? Wrong. It just keeps getting worse, and it doesn't stop. Australian media has been taking massive, fat, dirty, icky dumps on the situation. Everyone is getting made fun of. Tension is already high as fuck. Things are out of control, and these plebes cannot get the better of these emus. Meredith, by this point, is surely losing his goddamn mind because he decides he's gonna mount a machine gun to a truck to try to chase the emus and get a closer shot on them, hoping to eliminate more. Some accounts state that this just led to trying to chase one emu at a time, and that the gunner was pulling a stormtrooper and couldn't get a clear shot in to save his pathetic sad gunner man life. Pulling out from the real bad, let's put a machine gun on a truck idea. November 8th rolls around. After days of attack attempts, 2,500 rounds of ammo have been spent, and not nearly enough emus have been slaughtered. Keep in mind, they are finding that it takes 10 bullets or more just to take down a single emu. These things are like a tank and a burb had a baby, and that baby's on steroids, and it's quite tall and can run super fucking fast and see pretty well. A pretty decent amount of these emus wouldn't end up actually dying until their wounds and injuries took them down days later. Things are looking pretty grim. Stepping back from this battle soon becomes the only option. Some ornithologist person named D.L. Cerventi even said, "The machine gunner's dreams of point-blank fire into serried masses of emus were soon dissipated. The emu command had evidently ordered guerrilla tactics, and its unwieldy army soon split up into innumerable small units that made use of the military equipment uneconomic. A crestfallen field force therefore withdrew from the combat area after about a month." These fucks be talking about emus using guerrilla warfare tactics. Like, are they trying to hype up the emus? Are they just embarrassed and ashamed? I honestly can't tell what the mood in the room is at this point, but I can only imagine what it must be like to go home to your wife and her asking, "How's the battle, dear? Our livelihood depends on it." And having to be like, "God damn it, Beatrice, our men are doing their God-given best. We've got 3 dudes and a couple guns, and they've got a goddamn feathered army. Do you know what they're doing out there? They're getting into our minds, Beatrice. It's guerrilla warfare." No wonder housewife bitches were on so many meds back in the day. Anyway, so the Australian government is like, "Okay, you idiots, I don't know why you suck at killing these emus, but you're using too much resource and yielding us jack shit except for really embarrassing media stories. Time to go home, please. Thank you." So that's it. They sent everyone home. But just because the people stopped doesn't mean that the emus will. Trying to kill the emus again, take 2, maybe more than 2 though, I don't know. The emus. The emus. They would not let up. After people withdrew from the emu heckening, their problems only got worse. Rampant, and possibly even out for revenge. And hungry for some grubbies, the emus raged on. Farmers once more lose their shit, turning again to the government for aid just 4 fucking days after their withdrawal. 4 days. They withdraw after 4 days. So some political dude named James Mitchell seemed to help convince the government to give it another go. Meredith, bless his fucking tired soul, was called back in. For another few weeks, they tried and tried again and tried again. Some days were better than others in terms of big birds killed, while others were disheartening to their efforts. It wouldn't be until December 10th that Meredith was recalled from the mission. They called it. They were done. They had failed. The government had conceded. They had lost the Great Emu War of Australia. The claim is that out of 10,000 rounds of ammunition, 986 emus were found to be confirmed kills over the course of the entire mission. They think even more died from injuries over time, but I mean, come on, just take the L, bro. Y'all fucking sucked at killing emus. Oh, and the human casualties for the war remain 0. You still lost, though. Pulled directly from Wikipedia because I'm just not done making fun of these f***s. In assessing the success of the cull, an article in the Coolgardie Miner on 23rd of August 1935 reported that although the use of machine guns had been criticized in many quarters, the method proved effective and saved what remained of the wheat. We did it, boys. We saved the wheat. The war is over. For years and years to come, farmers would request assistance of the government and the military to help fix the issue of the emu population. I mean, again, it's not like it just went away or something. The government would decline requests for involvement as it was seen as a lost cause and a ridiculous cost. Some sources I read talk about the bounties being placed on emus continuing, having been the ending solution, as well as free ammunition given to farmers to fight off emus themselves over time. These things working in tandem eventually quelled the issue, and the population of the emus was eventually controlled and became more reasonable. The emus had won. And eventually, humans and emus learned to live together better. A lot more fences, sure, but all living nonetheless. Unless you guys, like, still shoot emus, I really don't know. Oh, and emus are back on the protected species list. All is well, and now that I've finally ingested way too much information about this shit, I can finally die. Thank you for slipping by. I'm Sheriff Bananas, and I hope you enjoyed hearing about the Great Emu War of Australia. Peace, bitches. I'm never gonna get used to doing outros. Probably sounded like shit. What do I care anymore? Who gives a fuck? Emus won. Fuck you, Australia. Probably shouldn't have said that. God help me. My brazen soul.